biggest ripoff on the market today. In fact, it is such a preposterous ripoff that if you were to tell someone about it, 99% of the time, they would think you're lying. They would say, that has to be against the law, a crime. There's no way that someone would allow that to happen. But that's just the cold hard truth, and you're about to get an extra dose of it. It's a drug called Duexis. It's a mixture of ibuprofen and famotidine, also known as Advil and Pepsid. And if these look familiar to you, that's because they probably are. You can go into any pharmacy and buy these. These are two over-the-counter medications that you do not even need a prescription for. This mixture of ibuprofen and famotidine, for a 1-month supply of Duexis, it costs $1,400. If you wanted to get these independently, one prescription of ibuprofen and one of famotidine, a 1-month supply costs $8 and $5, and you did not misread that. $8 and $5. $13. Charging $1,400 for something that costs $13. So more than 100 times as expensive. So if you were to get a year's supply of Duexis, it would cost the same as 100 years of ibuprofen and famotidine. In fact, it would be more than 100 years. So basically, a year's worth of Duexis, you can get a lifetime supply if you got them independently. And I know this sounds crazy. Say, like I said, it has to be illegal. It isn't. And I'm going to prove it to you. So here we are. Famotidine, ibuprofen. It's two medicines together. It's 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, 26.6 milligrams of famotidine. You can see the prices there. $1,400 for 90 tablets. This is for a 30-day supply. Ibuprofen. You can also get this in 800 milligrams. So precisely the same strength as that comes in Duexis. 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. 90 tablets, $8. Famotidine, 20 milligrams as opposed to 26.6. Often you'll see with these combination drugs, they'll change it very slightly. As in the Dymista, remember how that was, instead of 137, it was 136 micrograms? They'll do stuff like that to try to throw people off. But here we are. It's $5.40 for 90 tablets. And you could even get a 40 milligram strength. And instead of $5, it would be $11.99. So there you have it. 800 milligrams of ibuprofen. It says so right here. Ibuprofen, 26.6 milligrams of famotidine. You can see the prices. $8, $5, $1,400. Now, I know a lot of people are there sitting there thinking, well, there has to be some kind of redeeming trait. It must be better quality or something like that. It has to be superior in some way. Well, actually, if you're thinking that, I'm glad you are, because this is where things are going to become very, very amusing. I was reading through the company's 2014 annual report, and I discovered something very interesting, and I know you will find it very interesting too. Right here on page 28, second paragraph, the first API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, in Duexis is ibuprofen, in a direct compression blend called DC85, which is manufactured by BASF. BASF is a German company, and it is the largest chemical manufacturer in the world. Everybody gets their ibuprofen from BASF. It's a German name, I can't really pronounce it, so I'm just going to keep saying BASF. All of those different brands of ibuprofen you see, Advil, Motrin, all of the other brands, all the stuff behind the counter, they all come from the same place. If you ever wondered what the difference is, there isn't. They all come from the same place, they just put a different label on it. Companies, chemical manufacturers like BASF, do this the cheapest. So they all buy it from this place, and they all put it in their own labels on it. That's the difference. Now, it sounds like this blend is supposed to be better and whatever, but it isn't. What DC85 is a particle size. It's not a blend. It's nothing being blended here. This is 99.99% ibuprofen. And if you go to the BASF site, which I'm not going to do here, maybe some other time, you can go on there and it will tell you it's 99.99% ibuprofen. The only difference that they have on these different so-called blends is not the blend, it's the particle size. So DC85 is a particle size. It is not a blend with anything. So when you go to make something for human consumption, every country is going to have different regulations. This is an international company. Every country will have different regulations. The FDA has its own regulations on how big the particles need to be. So what DC85 lets you know is that it's meeting FDA standards for particle size. That's all. It's still 99.99% ibuprofen. It's the same as all other generic ibuprofens. It's the same as all the over-the-counter brands. They all come from the same place. The next interesting part here, we purchase famotidine manufactured by Dr. Reddy's in India. I thought that was really funny because everyone who has ever worked in a pharmacy knows Dr. Reddy's is one of the biggest manufacturers of generic medications in the entire world. Dr. Reddy's manufactures their own famotidine generic. And what this company is doing is just basically buying Dr. Reddy's generic famotidine and then putting it in their own medication. So what happens is you have a $4 bottle of Dr. Reddy's famotidine. As soon as they pour all that stuff into their own Duexis bottle, it magically turns from $4 into $1,400. So what this proves definitively here is that the ingredients used in Duexis are not in any way superior at all to those found in generic medications. It says so right here on page 28 of their 2014 annual report. By now you can understand the gravity of the situation. Duexis is nothing more than simple theft. It's a con. Just the way that people can con the young and the very old out of their money through various means. This company is using its superior medical knowledge to con good, honest people out of their money for nothing. As I showed in the previous examples, this mixture, ibuprofen and famotidine, is in no way superior to the generic versions of these medications. In fact, they are exactly the same. So it is nothing more than theft, and a very lucrative theft at that. One more reference to this annual report. In 2014, they had a revenue of $83 million off of Duexis, and in 2013, 58, a 41% increase. So next year, or this year, I should say, this current year, we can easily expect them to clear $100 million. That's $100 million of waste. What medical benefit has been provided by spending $83 million last year? Nothing. It's exactly the same as the generic medications. All that you've helped do is just make this guy here very rich, the people at his company very rich, the owners of that company very rich, and the prescribers of that medication very rich. The prescribers of that medication, they are compensated for it. That's the reason why they do it. So there are a few things you can do. Number one, educate yourself to make sure you don't get ripped off by these thieves. Number two, if you know someone who's on it, make sure you let them know. And remember this, just because someone doesn't have a copay does not mean they're not paying for it. What a company like this will offer to do is pay for your copay. Suppose that you go to the pharmacy and you discover that you have a $400 copay. You didn't know that these were two generic medications that were exactly the same. You just assumed that you need it because the doctor gave it to you. What this company will do, say you have a $400 copay, will offer to pay your copay. Sounds good, right? I don't have to pay a copay. It doesn't cost me anything. It does cost you something. Because even though it wiped out $400 of this, they're still making $1,000 for something that costs $13. In fact, that should cost less because the manufacturing price is going to be much, much lower than that. So while you won't pay it on a copay basis, what's going to happen is the premium that you pay is going to increase. And it's the same thing for government programs when it gets approved for someone on Medicaid, which is a big target market of theirs. People who especially don't have copay because then the government has to pay the entire price. They don't even have to take a loss on the copay, which isn't really a loss. You're just not making as much money as you would have otherwise. On Medicaid and also on Medicare, because a lot of people on Medicare don't have copays as well. But even these people, you should let them know because you're still paying for it. You're paying for it through your taxes instead. So what this is just a very sophisticated way of robbing people who are just unaware. It's a con job. And there's one more thing that you should know as well. So educate yourself, educate others. And if you see a prescriber that tries to give this to you, just know that they're corrupt. They're a con person. So there are a lot of prescribers out there that don't have people's best medical interests at heart. What they do have is their own interest at heart. And what they're interested is in script farming. Just giving you whatever medication they can make money off of. If someone gives you a Duexis prescription, as a doctor there is no way they do not know that this is a mixture of ibuprofen and famotidine and that these are over-the-counter medications. Most people who have no medical knowledge know that these are over-the-counter medications. So that instead of the usual choice, whether it means they did no research on your medicine or they're trying to make money off of you, con you, it only leaves one clear choice, is that they're trying to make money off of you. So if you ever see a prescriber suggest that you take this, or if you see any materials in their office for this medication, I would suggest that you get another doctor because they're not going to have your best medical interests at heart. They're going to have whatever is going to make them the most money at heart. So I hope you found this helpful. I definitely got to give myself a one-up, a victory here, so I'll mark that right here. If you have any additional questions, let me know. I can definitely answer them for you. Otherwise, if you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and I'll do more because this is just the tip of the iceberg. Stay healthy and I'll see you next time. Good luck.